What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Golden Dice Podcast. And we're here with a spoiler recap from the week of the 20th through the 24th. Now, it is just me. We were hoping to have Flock and Scott on here, but my wife was over her friends tonight, and I had both kids, and neither of them were sleeping, so it was a lot of fun. And we're recording this pretty late, so I'm hoping to have some coherent thoughts as the kids keep you up with sickness. But we had some really good spoilers this past week, and one podcast had the best ones because they're the best. But we'll go ahead and dive into some of these, and hopefully I can hit all the points that I kind of had marked off on some of these. And so the first one we have is Finalizer. It is a space unit, 11 cost, villainy command, 11/11, first order, vehicle, capital ship, overwhelm. When played, choose any number of friendly units. Each of those units captures an enemy non-leader unit in the same arena. And this is legendary. So 11, but this also isn't, I believe it was Jeremy or Danny said one of their favorite cards was also the highest cost card. This is not it. So there's something bigger coming this set. 11 is weird. Cost, I mean, you can think about some of the other capital ships of, Avenger, Relentless, Devastator. For the most part, Devastator is like a one of, maybe two of in some of these control decks, and maybe split among main deck and sideboard. Avenger consistently sees play because of how good it can be, on the heels of Super Laser Blast into Avenger the next turn. And this one's interesting because the other ones kind of just take over on their own, whereas Finalizer, you kind of want more units on the board for this to be effective enough for it to warrant the 11 cost, right? Even just obviously 11/11 overwhelm is really good, but if you're getting that late, you're going to need a big impact from this card. So, green definitely has some of the better ones, and then even like green villain, if a few of your units die, you can Emperor's Legion to bring them back. You have Vader to search your deck. Command can take stuff out, if you're going double aspect stuff. So there's some interesting plays there. I think it's going to be hard to take full advantage of this, but maybe there's a few more cards that help populate, the board. And if there's a way for green to keep flooding the board with units and getting stuff out to have, even if it's just like one other unit really out at the end of the game, right? Because it doesn't say any other friendly units. The Finalizer can also capture an Avenger or, whatever it might be for that. So it's interesting. 11 is a lot. But, I mean, green villain has super laser tech, has resupply, has the new bounty, and has command if you're mono. So there's 4 ramp cards. That's a lot of ramp. Probably too much, but it's there for the taking in those control games. Next up, we have Palpatine's Return. Staying in green villain. 6 cost event. It's force and a plan. It says play unit from your discard pile. It costs 6 less. If it's a force unit, it costs 8 less instead. And this is a rare. And this is really interesting. I mean, the fact that you can do recursion on anything is pretty cool. You just pay 6 to play whatever from your discard pile. I mean, even some of these control games, if they get your Avenger with a Vanquish or their own Avenger, you can play that Avenger again and cost, the 6 that you paid to play this event goes directly into that thing. But the ability to go upwards and get more value out of it, Villain right now has Dooku, has Darth Vader, and Palpatine for their Force users that they can bring back. So all of those are, if you're able to play them on 6, are all very good. Palpatine being the highest because he's coming in doing 6 damage on turn 5 at 6 resources, and it's really good. We've already played some test games with this, and I was playing it with a leader we're going to get to, which helps you discard to get Palp and Vader. I was playing Red Green Villain into the discard, so you can hit this more consistently with the targets that you actually want to hit, right? The other cards in the deck that are Force users, it doesn't matter because they cost 6 or less anyways, right? Like Seventh Sister, Fifth Brother, those things are a little bit irrelevant. So it's really just the 3 units in Villain right now that are going to benefit from the discount, but playing all of those at 6 resources are going to be really good. So this is a card to build a deck around, and especially with some synergies that we'll see in a moment with Kylo Ren. But, you know, even if you don't want to play Kylo Ren, you know, you can force throw a Palpatine early or a Vader early, delete something off the board, and then be able to have some fuel for Palpatine's return later in the game. This card is awesome. It's a blast. The people are going to hate this. I can tell you that. I can definitely tell you that. Going next, we have the Gray Squadron Y-Wing Space Unit, 2 cost, just heroism, a 1/3 Rebel vehicle fighter. On attack, an opponent chooses a unit or a base they control. You may deal 2 damage to it. You know, giving your opponents options is always a little rough. So it makes me hesitant to think about it. I mean, we played X-Wing, and this kind of seems on par with X-Wing, and can even argue maybe a little better. Now, again, on attack, you have already declared what you're attacking, so you can't like see where they ping the 2 and then either go to base or go into another. You know, if you play this, they play an A-Wing, you claim you're going first. You can't like open attack, see if they deal 2 to the base, and then if they do, you go to base, or if they do 2 to the A-Wing, you go to the A-Wing. You know, you declare what you're attacking, and then the on attacks happen. So, I mean, it's rough. I mean, it's another Rebel, so, you know, that Rebel package staying around, like maybe Leia does like this a little bit. I think just 1/3 is rough, right? The A-Wing is a 1/3 with rate 2, so you can pick where all 3 of that damage goes to. The Gray Squadron Y-Wing might not. And I'd be like, oh, if they deal 2 to base, I'm content. Sometimes, you know, if you're losing out on trades or it's not looking as good for you, you know, health is a resource in this game too, most definitely. So if this means you're constantly losing out on trades, this can definitely be a little bit rough. But time will tell. You know, that could be that those extra pings to get some shields or, you know, even just push base damage could be relevant, but not looking super likely. But it is a single aspect heroism. You know, these cards and the Vilni ones need to be a little tempered because they could go in any of those decks. Next up, we have Kylo Ren, who is what I was talking to about with Palpatine's return. And so Kylo Ren is rash and deadly. And he is an aggression villain leader. He's action, exhaust him, discard a card from your hand, give a unit +2/+0 for this phase. He is force, first order. He comes out at 4 resources, and he has 5 attack, 4 health. But his leader side or leader unit side says this unit gets -1, -0 for each card in your hand. So you're very incentivized to just get everything out of your hand, pump your stuff, do damage, and then have him come out. And even if he's a 3/4 or a 4/4, having that force trait is really good for cards like Force Throw or even lightsabers on him and stuff like that as well. So I know a lot of people were very tempered on him, and that's probably putting it kindly, when he was spoiled, but I do actually think he's going to be pretty good. And especially, you know, playing some other card games. I mean, Legends of Runeterra, I remember, like, I think it was like the Piltover and Zon. You got a lot of benefits from discarding cards, and you got to play more powerful effects because you were discarding your own stuff. So if we see some more of that from Vilni aggression this set, I think he could be really good. We already see one thing with his TIE Fighter, which we'll be up to in just a moment. But I like him. I think he's got a lot of potential. And I get it. He's 4. He dies to open fire. He dies to take down. He dies to a lot of things. But the fact that his leader side is so good, you can really just wait. Right? If they're just sitting there passing, you can do his ability. You can pump extra damage. You can do all these things and be very content with that. And even if you deploy him, they spend all the resources. They have the initiative. They go in the next round, and their first action is to open fire or take down or whatever. I think you're content if he already swung in for 3 and you got to pump last round as well. So I like him a lot. Give him a chance, I would think. And he's got 2 interesting shells for me in command and in cunning right now. Being able to pump and discard and then force them to discard and bounce stuff back to your hand with McClunky. Like, there's definitely some interesting plays that you can have with him to keep fuel for that as well. All right. And on the next one, we have the Rickety Quadjumper Space Unit, 2 cost, Vigilance. It is a 1/3 Fringe Vehicle Transport. On attack, you may reveal the top card of your deck. If it's not a unit, give an experience token to another unit. Leave the real card on top of your deck. And this is a common. Not good. I mean, just 1/3 in space again. That was my complaint about the Y-Wing, but the Y-Wing also has the potential to deal 3. Don't love revealing, giving your opponent information just for the chance of an experience token. Letting them know what 50% of your card draw is going to be. That's the best upside of Thrawn, and he's still not that good, so maybe it's not as impactful as I might think, but I do think that's the best part of Thrawn anyways. And just giving your opponent that free information is not ideal. So not in love with the quad jumper here. But the better space unit is at Kylo's TIE Silencer. It's a space unit, 2 cost, aggression, villainy, ruthlessly efficient, 3 attack, 2 health, first order, vehicle, fighter. It's a legendary, and it has an action. If this unit was discarded from your hand or deck this phase, play it from your discard pile, paying its cost. Interesting that there is a reminder text on this, and this is a legendary. Normally that hasn't happened at all, but maybe they've just seen so many questions with ECL, which is rare, so it doesn't have reminder text, or even some of the hyperspace, like Chewbacca not having reminder text at some of these events, or pre-release events. And all that stuff should get better the more and more people play the game and stuff. But yeah, that's just a little interesting tidbit. Amazing. I mean, I think this card is just straight up just good. Obviously synergizes with Kylo, but also outside of Kylo, there's things that do hit the deck. I mean, we've seen Vigilance being played consistently across the board and hitting people's decks very frequently with it as well. And then you have stuff, like Kanan Jarrus is discarding from your deck. And so there's definitely some ways that you are going to find use out of this, of it coming out of your deck, as well as optimizing it with Kylo coming out of your hand. And even if neither of those things happen and you just open up with a 3-2 in space, you're going to be very, very content. You're going to kill everything that also gets played there. Yes, it is, kind of stinks that you also die to like an X-Wing. An X-Wing trades with you, but the upside on this, I think, far outweighs it, and you can gobble up an A-Wing and a Red 3. You know what I mean? You have those options right there. So this is a really good card. I think this will be played a lot. Maybe not like the top 3 legendary, right? Maybe not price point of Vader, Luke, Boba. I could see this settling around like a Falcon level, where it's really good. It's included as a 3 of all the time, but maybe not as pricey, not as prevalent in like the top decks, but still very, very good. And so we're moving on. The Concord Dawn Interceptors, another space unit, 3 cost, vigilance, heroism, 1 attack, 4 health, Mandalorian, vehicle, fighter. It's a Sentinel, and it says this unit gets +2/+0 while defending. It's an uncommon. Kind of dig it. Mandalorian keyword we've been seeing pop up a little bit, especially in like these red-blue shells are kind of where we're seeing a lot of these Mandalorians at. And so that synergy is always going to be nice. A Sentinel in space at 3 is great. I mean, it's 1 cheaper than the Patrol Craft. And sure, the Patrol Craft can hit base for 3, but I mean, just a Sentinel, a 3/4 Sentinel to eat up a lot of those space units. I mean, and coming out a turn earlier, I think is going to be pretty good. So I'm cautiously optimistic of this card, and as we see with a leader in just a second with Rey of the low attack on it, there's some synergies there of her being able to buff this and play this as well. So this is interesting. I like the card. I could see it not making cuts in some decks unless it has clear synergy of Mandalorian or with Rey in a moment. Maybe it doesn't make the cut in like a Chart Red deck, but certainly is good and going to be worth a look. And if you're struggling with space, this will be the thing that you include to deal with space, especially over Patrol Craft, which is like the only other option you really had so far. All right, moving on to ground unit, finally, 4 cost, Vigilance, Nema, Outpost, Constables. 2 attack, 6 health, Fringe, Sentinel, Common. Don't like it. Sure, synergy with Rey, we'll get into a second. If it's at 2 or less power, you can pay 1 to give a experience token. So, yeah, you could make it a 3/7 Sentinel, but, I mean, just 2 attack. At 4 costs is just so rough. I mean, you're getting 2 drops that are 3/3s. Even some of my favorite 3 drops like Yoda are a struggle to play sometimes because he has 2 attack, and so now you're going into 4 costs with 2 attack, and I get that they have 6 health, but like your opponent could attack him with a Battlefield Marine and attack him with Sabine, and neither of those things die, and your Sentinel is now dead. And I get it. You eat 2 attacks, like, it's not bad, but you're still staring at the same board state that you were just a moment before. And, I mean, I think there's just going to be better options in blue for 4 drops. Like, I'd rather play Baze over these guys. I'd rather drop Kanan over these guys, just thinking of Vigilance as well. So I think there's just going to be better options. It's a single aspect. It's common. I don't think it's too crazy. Yeah. Next is Give Into Your Anger. 1 cost, aggression, villainy, event, innate. Deal 1 damage to an enemy unit. Its controller's next action this phase must be an attack action with that unit if able. It must attack a unit if able. This is a rare. This is kind of like I don't say like necessarily niche ability, but it's very like specific. I can see this being played and like being a blowout, but also you would have to like line those things up perfectly. Like I can see this being a card where you know, when it works and it feels great, but that's maybe 20 to 30% of the time. So I'm not as high on it. I see the lines, I see the plays of you deal damage to ping a shield off, and now they have to attack into, you know, like one of your Sentinels, and you get a better trade. And now you eat 2 of their units, where if they did it in a different order, the other unit would have traded first. You know, things like that. So there's some lines that'll probably be pretty good with this. I'm just curious, you know, as 3 of that might be a little too conditional to get this off, but you know, a 1 of, a 2 of, I could definitely see this coming into play for that. But yeah, the deal the 1 doesn't seem super relevant other than like pinging off shields or, you know, maybe opening up the steal with Palpatine, but it might die anyways because it has to attack into a unit. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at for that. Slaver's Freighter, space unit, 5 cost, cunning, villainy, 4 attack, 5 health, underworld vehicle transport. When played, you may ready another unit with power equal to or less than the number of upgrades on enemy units. Common. This card hard counters Metal Ceremony. I mean, and it's played generally the turn after Metal Ceremony is played, right? Sabine plays that at 4 resources, right? The deploy turn, ECL and K2 potentially attacking with other stuff, you know, getting out 3 tokens, and if they wing leader, you know, well, I guess I can't wing leader and ECL that turn, unless they do it with the the wing leader, but then that is now dead, very very likely. So I mean, and we're seeing an upgrade, a rise in upgrades, so I could see this being half decent. 4/5 in space is okay. It's hard to like see the crazy upside knowing what comes out next turn in Yellow Villain with the fire spray, but Yellow Villain does have a general absence in space, you know, from 4 and 5. You know, you get Cartel Spacer, which don't even really love anyways. 7 Fleet Defender, really great, but you know, that struggles with making opening against Vigilance. Like that definitely has some downsides. And then, you know, the nothing at 4 really, nothing at 5, and then at 6 you get the Fire Spray, which is one of the best cards in the game. So this is a 4/5 in space. I mean, not terrible for Yellow Villain. And again, if you see more and more upgrades being played, this is pretty good. But you know, again, it doesn't even necessarily have to be a crazy upgrade meta. It could simply be just good into some of these Sabine decks, some of these experienced ones, some of these shield decks like Luke and all the other things that Blue Hero is getting this upcoming set as well. So certainly interesting. You could ready some decent stuff off of it. And it is another unit, by the way, so you can't do itself. Just a confirmation on that. Next we have Kira, a 4-cost ground unit. She's playing her part. She's cunning, heroism, 3 attack, 5 health, underworld, 4 cost. I don't know if I said that. When played, look at opponent's hand, then name a card. While this unit is in play, each card with that name costs 3 more for your opponents to play, and she is a rare. I like her a lot. 4 cost, 3/5 doesn't feel amazing, but I think the 5 health kind of keeps it going. The 3 attack can still do generally a lot of trading with the smaller units. It feels bad when you can't even trade to the 2 drops and the 3 drops. but you'll definitely be able to do that with her. What's also interesting is that you don't have to name what's in her hand, right? Look at opponent's hand, then name a card. You don't need to name a card that is in that opponent's hand. So if they just have a bricked hand and you're like, man, I'm actually more worried about Super Laser Blast or, something, you can simply say that. Maybe not call that if they have a takedown and they're going to answer her right away, but it certainly is interesting, and you get to see what's in their hand. So I like her. She definitely seems pretty decent, and kind of being like not like a pseudo spar. I mean, she's probably more akin to like a regional governor type style in that, they'll probably just eventually want to kill her. And at 5 health is a little bit more challenging to get to for some of these cards. So, like her. And, I mean, I think just Yellow Hero could use some of that disruption for hand. They got Spark Rebellion. Obviously, they can grip, so that's the nice part about her is that she can combo with that as well. Next, we have an event here. 2 cost, a new adventure. It's a gambit. It's a double aspect, cunning. Return a non-leader unit that costs 6 or less to its owner's hand. Then its owner may play it for free. It's an uncommon. I mean, this just seems insane. Like, there's probably a lot of things that, I can't even, comprehend right now, but even just, attack with Fire Spray, play Fire Spray at 6 resources, attack, right, go into the next round, attack with it, and then do a new adventure. And, you can play it for free again and still have at least 4 resources because you were at 6. If you went to 7, then, you have 5 more to do this again. So that's a really interesting line that Fire Spray can keep coming in and keep doing multiple attacks. And then even things like with Ambush, there technically is an infinite loop right now of this and Bounty Hunter Crew. I mean, it's a 4/4, so it's likely dying to a good amount of stuff. But, I mean, if they have a small board that can get cleared and you have infinite resources, you technically can loop that a bunch. So that's interesting. And then even things like Bosk, if he's in play, you can play this. You can return him to your hand. You still deal the 2 damage because it was triggered while he was in play. And then you play him again, and you can ambush. And I believe you can pick the order. So you can do the 2 damage first or ambush him. So you have the options there to ping off a shield and then ambush a 4/5 into him and still have Bosk on board. So, I mean, this is really good. Anything with on-play effects is just going to be really good. And worst case, it probably feels awkward to, bounce your opponent's stuff just knowing it's coming back. But you can look at his 2-cost bamboozle almost. You know what I mean? It loses all their upgrades, all their experience, all their shields. And then they have to play it and it's exhausted, right? The downside is if it's a shielded unit, if it's a ambushed unit, you're definitely gonna have some bad targets looking across the board. But I'm eyeing this up to see how I can use this on my own units. That's what I'm looking at. I also love the artwork on this. This is fantastic, and this was one of the ones from Jeremy Zawarian's article, and of course he picked this one, and I love that for him. All right, next up we have Rey, More Than a Scavenger. Vigilance, Heroism, Leader, Action, pay 1, exhaust her, give an experience token to a unit with 2 or less power. She has Force and Fringe. She comes out at 6, and she's a 2/6. And she has Restore 3, and her on attack is you may give an experience token to a unit with 2 or less power. So, first attack, she buffs herself. So essentially you can look at her as a 3/7, Restore 3. Not the best stats in the world. The comparison goes to Tarkin with handing out experience. Tarkin can give it to any Imperial. He comes out as a 2/7, I believe, but he does come out at 5. But, I mean, it's hard, but I think the Restore 3 is just kind of better for that. Like, these blue hero decks, especially if you go double aspect, gosh, Quill, Yoda into Kanan. You have Vigilance out there. You have the Razor Crest out there. Moisture farmers. You can buff your moisture farmers pretty high. Just a lot of interesting things for that. We did a demo of Kylo versus Rey, and I gave Brian Rey with, I think, Aggression. And, being able to buff A-Wings, being able to buff a Red 3, buffing Sabine, right? There's some good to, buffing Yoda, like all these really good synergies or units that you would gladly just pay 1 to give them an extra health and an attack. So I think she'll settle somewhere around the middle. I think she'll be better than Tarkin. Tarkin has been pretty rough. This meta hasn't really popped up. I'm sure he's won a few store championships and definitely could, dominate a local scene. Just because, the skill varied is very much different in local scenes, and good players can kind of take whatever. Someone could dominate with IG88 every week, I'm sure. But I like her a lot. She seems interesting, and she seems worth experimenting with, especially in mono vigilance. Is kind of where my mind is going, because also if you buff some of those things up, you then have the Mandalorian unit that can come out and fully heal them, give them 2 more shields because they're 2 costs or less. So that works with A-Wings or Sabines, right? That wouldn't work with, Yoda or any of the 3 costs or more that have some smaller attacks. Now, I do currently think it's I don't want to say bait, but I don't love the idea of playing like super, super tiny stuff. Like I know people are calling immediately to Moisture Farmer and being like, it's 0.5 with Restore 2, and you can now, bump it up and have it look really good, and it's now a 3.8, right? I'm pretty sure it's a 0.5. I truly don't even remember all of that. So, I don't know. Sinking all those extra resources into that seems like a little bit of a trap, but I get why having a big body like that with Restore is going to be tempting. 0.4, so excuse me, and Restore 2 on that. So, I don't know. There'll be some interesting ways. Overall, I think it looks a little bit tricky, but there could be some things with raid units, right? Even if you go into green, you could get the Sundari Peacekeeper, the 1/5 with raid 2 and Restore 2. Like, there's definitely some plays that you can look that'll be very valuable for her. And she's not, Tarkin has to be Imperial. Rey, anytime there's a 2 attack or less, you're immediately being like, all right, this is going Rey, does this work, etc. And I should note that Grit would put it past it. So you would need to give it like Baze would work. You give an experience token to put him at 3, but then if he takes damage before he can do that, his attack's now higher. He can't get the experience. I'm not going to go too crazy in the patrol wing. We did our video. This is one of our spoilers. I think it's pretty good. 4/6 in space. If you have the initiative, you can attack with a unit. You can attack with a unit. If you have initiative, it gets +2 attack for this attack. So yeah, just really good. I mean, maybe not really good, but I think it's solid. 4/6 in space is a pretty good body. Clears out most stuff. Doesn't die to a lot of stuff within 1 hit, right? It doesn't die to a ghost. Doesn't die to fire spray, but it doesn't kill it either. So there's that little bit of a trade-off. Yeah, I like it. Green Hero, New Republic vehicle fighter. The worst part is that it doesn't have the Rebel tag, and we'll need to see how these aggro mid-range decks play out. Do they want this or not? Do they want a non-Rebel unit is the question. And then our other spoiler that we got is Poe Dameron. Again, not going to dive into him. You can check out our video that me, Brian, and Flock, and Scott all got to kind of dive through on that. But I think he's really good. You see obvious Black 1 synergy going up. I love every single option. I almost like the discard a card from the hand the most. But dealing the 2, defeating an upgrade, like all that stuff can be, really, really good. If you play him at 5 resources next round, it's like they can't take out Iden because he defeats an upgrade, or deals 2, whatever, Well, you could do the 2 to base, but you defeat an upgrade, defeat the shield token, and smack and kill Iden, and you still have a 6 attack sticking around. So, I know he doesn't do anything on when played. His is on attack, but a 6/6 that sticks around is going to be very hard for him to deal with at 5 resources. So I like him a lot. I think you'll be seeing him played, and he is legendary. Next, we have Miggs Mayfield, a.k.a. Bill Burr. 2-cost ground unit, aggression, trait, or title is Triggerman. 2 attack, 2 health, underworld keyword. And when a player discards a card from their hand, you may deal 2 damage to a unit or base. Use this ability only once each round. He's a rare. I like him a lot. He's super interesting, and he goes back to what we were talking about with Kylo and the synergy there. And Like, it feels bad, but there's certainly plays where, if they play a 2 health thing round 1 and you play Migs, like, you can discard to just kill it, right? You won't get the +2 from that, but then there's also synergies of if you make them discard, right? If he's in a Poe deck, and you make them discard when a player discards a card from the hand, I mean, you would also be discarding too anyways, but there's stuff like that, or like you pick them for force throw, right? There's some synergies there that I like. And right, 2/2 stat line isn't great for turn 1 play, but the fact that he can deal some extra damage kind of makes him a little bit more interesting, a little bit more worth looking at. And then next up, we got Bazine Natal, a 2-cost ground unit, spy for the First Order, cunning and villainy. And I actually love seeing her in the game because she was in Star Wars Destiny, and she was super interesting. She didn't do damage unless she did the first bit. Her special was deal 1 unless they have no damage, deal 3, which was interesting. But she's a 1 attack, 3 health, underworld tag. When played, look at opponent's hand. You may discard one of those cards. If you do, that player draws a card. And she also has smuggle for 4 with cunning and villainy, and is a rare. Interesting. Kind of similar to what some of the hero stuff does it a little bit worse, but the bonus is that she can be smuggled, right? There's some interesting lines of, you can take away a lot of people's turn 1 plays. Now, aggro decks are probably going to grip 2/2 anyways because they might try to dodge you. But, opening up this and taking away somebody's turn 1 play is certainly an option. And then even late game with smuggling her in, taking away some of their bigger cards that you're more worried about, taking away Super Laser Blast, Vigilance, and Avenger. I keep going to blue all the time. I don't know if you can tell what PTSD I have from this game so far. But I like her. Obviously, the downside is they still get to draw a card. But you could also, not. Right? So no matter what, you can look at an opponent's hand, but then it's a may discard. And then if you do, that's when they draw a card. So if you look at their hand and it's bricked and you're like, all right, I can reign free this turn because you played her later in the game, you don't have to worry about them drawing in something. If they have a bad hand, just you have the option to leave them with that bad hand. But I like her. You can't smuggle Spark, you can't smuggle Bodhi, and you can with 1/3 is just terrible stat line though, absolutely terrible. So, but Underworld works with stuff like McClunky and whatnot. So there's some outs there for that. But I like her, but a little quirky. I mean, I could see her at least just being a consistent sideboard 2-cost thing. If she's not a 3 of in every main deck, I get that, but I still think she is going to be a really good card, and you're going to be seeing her played, I believe, in the upcoming meta. And then the last card that we have for today is the Coruscant Dissident, and it's a 3-cost ground unit, cunning, heroism, 3 attack, 4 health, underworld, twilight. On attack, you may ready a resource. I dig it. Don't think it sets the world on fire. Just like I don't think Ezra sets the world on fire, and if anything, I like Ezra's ability more, I think. The best part of this is that it naturally synergizes with Falcon, which is in that same color, and is like the only card right now that constantly exhausts, right? So, I mean, if you're exhausting to pay for the Falcon, you can attack with her, ready it, and still have your full resources ready to go. And 3/4 is fine. I don't know. Don't think she's crazy, and she probably will just fight with Ezra for that 3-cost 3/4. And even he's struggled to get into some of these lists. He's struggled to get into. I mean, Han, he makes it almost consistently because of the card draw. But anything else that splashes like Hero Yellow, he's kind of struggled to get into, Cassian, because Cassian draws a bunch. Sabine just kind of prefers some other stuff, a little bit more aggressive stuff that gets more immediate impact on things, right? And even at 3, it's like, you could play the Falcon over this and stuff. So the cost is a little awkward, right? If I could almost if she was a 2-3 though, that's still pretty rough. Almost something to where when the Falcon comes in, she's ready to attack that turn, right? Because you play your 2-drop, you go into the second round, you got 3 resources, you play the Falcon. You go in the next round, it'll be exhausted, and she has no way to do it, all right? Unless you like ECL or something like that, but that doesn't seem like an ideal play. Now, obviously, you could play her at 3, and then at 4 resources is when you play the Falcon, but it's like, what are you doing with the extra one? Do you have something that you can actually take value of that? So there's some things to think about, but I like all of these cards. I'm so excited for set 2. I mean, if you haven't seen that we did a Kylo, we did a Rey gameplay, I mean, we're all just pretty much excited for set 2 at this point. I think we are maybe making one more showdown early June for any of us, but work for me picks up pretty decently mid-June and probably won't stop until release of the game. So I'll be a little bit busy in the coming weeks, but at this point my sights are set on set 2. I love set 1. Fantastic. They did a great job. The meta's evolved and been great, but very, very excited for what we get with set 2. Double leaders, double card pool. Like, it's actually insane how many we're going to have. 36 leaders? Like, there's 18. You're going to double it. It's going to be crazy. Super, super excited for it. But yeah, keep just following us on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, obviously, if you're watching here. We're on top of the spoilers, on sharing that stuff and sharing who spoiled them as well. And you're getting 5 content creators dropping 2 spoilers throughout the week, and their streams as well. Their Monday and Friday reveals, their Tuesday and Thursday leader reveals. There's a lot of cards that are coming at us, and we're currently at 121 plus the 10 reprints. So we're at 131, which puts us at halfway plus the 2 tokens, right? So we're halfway there. We are halfway to seeing all of set 2, and I'm excited to explore the rest of that with you guys. So appreciate that. If you have any feedback, it's not typically ever just going to be me, but schedules did not align. I wanted to get this out this week because I didn't want to get behind on our spoiler reviews as these come out every Monday, recapping the whole last week. But appreciate that, and I will catch you all next time.